What if the sky is trying to tell you something you're not ready to hear? Over the past few weeks, headlines everywhere have been screaming about the asteroid 3I Atlas. This massive celestial giant hurtling through space, capturing the world's attention. Scientists are calculating trajectories, news anchors are interviewing experts, social media is flooded with theories, memes, and more than a little panic. But here's the question nobody's asking. What if this isn't just another astronomical event? What if there's something deeper going on here? Something spiritual, something prophetic, something that connects this moment to warnings given over a century ago? See, most people look at an asteroid and see math, orbits, physics, probability. But what if you're missing the entire point? What if celestial phenomena like this are actually divine messages written across the cosmos, and you've been too distracted to read them? Today, we're going to explore something that'll challenge everything you thought you knew about asteroids, prophecy, and the times we're living in. We're diving into the writings of Ellen G. White, a woman who had access to revelations that transcend science, revelations that explain what's really happening when objects like the asteroid 3I Atlas cross our skies. So, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because what you're about to discover isn't being talked about anywhere else. This channel exists to reveal the spiritual mysteries hidden behind world events. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. And here's my challenge to you. Watch this entire video. Not just the first few minutes, all of it. Because by the end, your perspective on asteroids, on prophecy, and on the urgency of the moment we're living in, it'll never be the same again. So let's start where most people never think to look, at what Ellen White revealed about signs in the heavens and why the asteroid 3I Atlas might be one of the most important prophetic signs you'll see in your lifetime. You know that feeling when you look up at the starry sky and sense there's something bigger going on? Well, humanity's always had that intuition. And Ellen White didn't just confirm it. She revealed that celestial phenomena carry divine messages most folks just ignore. When she interpreted events like the darkening of the sun in 1780 and that jaw-dropping meteor shower of 1833, she wasn't just waxing poetic about spiritual stuff. She was connecting the dots between Matthew 24 and what people could actually see blazing across the night sky. Jesus had said it plain as day. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And Ellen White caught on that those events weren't just random astronomical coincidences. They were prophetic omens, divine warnings written in fire, streaking through the firmament. The asteroid 3I Atlas that's capturing worldwide attention today, it fits perfectly into this narrative of signs in the heavens marking our era. What's fascinating is that Ellen White Prophecies always had this tone of urgency mixed with hope. She didn't see God's signs as empty threats, but as invitations to repentance and salvation. Think about it. When you spot a traffic sign warning dangerous curve ahead, you don't get mad at the sign. You're grateful for the heads up and you slow down. Celestial phenomena work the same way. They're cosmic billboards saying, "Attention, something momentous is approaching. Get ready." And that's exactly why the spiritual message behind asteroids, meteors, and other astronomical events resonates so deeply in our times. We're living in an age where biblical prophecies aren't ancient stories anymore. They're newspaper headlines. Now, let's be real. Why does humanity get so fascinated yet terrified when an asteroid like 3I Atlas shows up in the news? Because deep down, we all know we're not in control of anything. You might have the best bank account, the best health insurance, the safest house, but against a celestial body traveling thousands of miles per hour, zero power. And it's precisely this vulnerability that should remind us of Ellen White's words about the final events and the importance of being spiritually prepared. She wrote extensively about how the end times would be marked not just by wars and rumors of wars, but also by visible signs in the cosmos, as if God were writing in the stars. Pay attention. Time's running out. Ellen White, end of the world, wasn't a concept of terror, but of hope. While many folks face news about asteroids in the Bible or prophetic interpretations with panic, she taught that for those who are prepared, these signs are actually welcome. They're like that first ray of sunlight before the full dawn breaks. The prophetic messages she left recorded remain extremely relevant today, maybe more than ever. When we study Matthew 24 through the lens she provided, we understand that Jesus wasn't being vague or poetic. He was being literal. There will be signs isn't a metaphor, it's a timeline. And each phenomenon crossing our sky is another item being checked off the prophetic list. What makes all this even more impressive is that we're living in an era where unraveling prophecies has become almost a collective hobby. Everyone wants to understand what's coming next. And while conspiracy theories and scientific speculation dominate the internet, few people stop to consult what Ellen White says about these spiritual mysteries. She had access to divine revelations that transcended the astronomical knowledge of her time. When she spoke about the meteor shower of 1833, she wasn't doing historical retrospective. She was pointing to a pattern that would repeat itself. The heavens would keep speaking, and we, as the last generation, would have the responsibility to listen. Because ignoring the signs of the end doesn't make them disappear. It just leaves us unprepared when they fulfill themselves right before our eyes. And whoever's paying attention notices the universe and God are in constant dialogue, and asteroids like 3I Atlas are part of this cosmic conversation. Let's talk about something that'll blow your mind. The asteroid 3I Atlas. This massive space rock isn't just another celestial body drifting through the void. It's a living testament to the sheer immensity of God's creation. When Ellen White said the universe is the book of nature, revealing the Creator's character, she wasn't being metaphorical. She meant it literally. Every star, every planet, every asteroid out there is like a chapter in this cosmic book, and if we're willing to read it, we'll discover truths about God that no amount of theological debate could teach us. The grandeur of the universe isn't just about big numbers and vast distances. It's about understanding that the same God who keeps 3I Atlas on its precise trajectory also cares about the smallest details of your life. That's the kind of power we're talking about here. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Ellen White prophecies often emphasized how biblical prophecies weren't just about doom and gloom. They were about revealing God's character through His creation. When you look at the asteroid 3I Atlas through spiritual eyes, you're not just seeing a chunk of rock and metal. You're seeing divine craftsmanship. You're witnessing power so immense that it holds entire solar systems together, yet so tender that it numbers the hairs on your head. Think about it. The same force that keeps asteroids from crashing into each other in the vast emptiness of space is the same force offering you salvation and hope. That's not coincidence. That's intentional design. And Ellen White caught on to this connection between the universe and God long before modern astronomy could confirm what she already knew through divine revelation. You want to know something wild? Most people look at space and feel insignificant. They see the vastness and think, I'm just a speck of dust in an uncaring cosmos. But that's missing the whole point of the spiritual message hidden in celestial phenomena. Ellen White taught that the immensity of creation doesn't diminish our value. It magnifies God's attention to detail. He didn't have to create billions of galaxies. He didn't have to set asteroids on perfect orbits. He didn't have to paint nebulas with colors we can barely comprehend. But He did. Why? Because that's who He is. A God of abundance, creativity, and meticulous care. When you grasp this truth, really grasp it, the asteroid 3I Atlas stops being a threat and becomes a reminder that you serve a God whose power operates on a cosmic scale, but whose love operates on a personal level. The prophetic messages we find in Ellen White's writings constantly point back to this theme. God reveals himself through what he's made. It's like when you meet an artist and then visit their studio. Suddenly you understand them on a deeper level because you see what they create. The universe is God's studio, and we're all invited to walk through it and marvel. That's why signs in the heavens matter so much. They're not just random events, they're revelations. Each asteroid that passes by Earth, each meteor shower that lights up the night sky, each eclipse that darkens the sun, these are all brushstrokes in the masterpiece God's painting across time and space. And if you're paying attention, if you're really looking, you'll start to see patterns. You'll start to notice that the Creator's signature is everywhere. What Ellen White understood, and what many miss today, is that the end times aren't just about catastrophe. They're about revelation. God is pulling back the curtain and showing us things we couldn't see before. The Asteroid 3I Atlas isn't just a news story. It's part of a larger narrative about divine power making itself known in undeniable ways. When she spoke about the universe and God being intimately connected, she was inviting us into a deeper understanding of both. The vastness doesn't separate us from him, it connects us. Because the same God who commands galaxies to spin also whispers to your heart. The same God who charts the course of asteroids also charts the course of your destiny. And recognizing this truth changes everything about how you view both the cosmos above and the spiritual journey within. The book of nature is still open, still speaking, and asteroids like 3I Atlas are just the latest chapter waiting to be read. Here's something they don't teach you in astronomy class. The perfect order you see in the heavens, planets orbiting in precise patterns, asteroids following mathematical trajectories, galaxies spiraling with geometric perfection. All of that is evidence of divine order. But it wasn't always this way. Ellen White's writings on the Great Controversy reveal a truth that's both terrifying and fascinating. There was a time when harmony existed not just in the physical universe, but in the spiritual one too. Before the asteroid 3I Atlas was even formed, before Earth became our home, there was perfect cosmic harmony. Every created being, every celestial body, every corner of existence operated in flawless synchronization with God's will. Then came the rebellion, and everything changed. When Lucifer decided he wanted to be God instead of serving God, he didn't just start a little disagreement, he shattered cosmic harmony. Ellen White Prophecies described this moment as the universe's first and greatest tragedy. Imagine a perfect symphony where every instrument plays in absolute unity, creating music so beautiful it defies description. Now imagine one musician suddenly deciding to play their own composition, louder and more discordant than anything else. That's what Lucifer's rebellion did to creation. The Great Controversy isn't just ancient history or theological theory. It's the underlying reality behind everything we see, including why asteroids like 3I Atlas occasionally threaten our planet. The physical chaos in the universe mirrors the spiritual chaos introduced by sin. What was once perfectly ordered became unpredictable. What was once completely safe became potentially dangerous. Now let's connect this to what we see today. When scientists talk about the asteroid 3I Atlas and calculate its trajectory, they're observing laws of physics that still function, but they're functioning in a fallen universe. Ellen White understood something profound. The signs in the heavens aren't just about future events. They're reminders of past rebellion. Every asteroid that streaks too close to Earth, every meteor that burns up in our atmosphere, every cosmic event that makes us hold our breath. These are echoes of that original rebellion. They're physical manifestations of a spiritual reality. The universe and God were once in perfect harmony, but sin introduced discord, and we're living with the consequences. Yet here's the beautiful part. Even in this broken cosmic state, God's order still prevails. Asteroids still follow orbits. Planets still maintain their courses. Gravity still works. It's like God saying, even though rebellion tried to destroy my creation, my power is so great that order persists. The spiritual message here cuts deep. Ellen White wrote extensively about how the great controversy plays out, not just in heaven or on earth, but across the entire cosmos. There are other worlds, unfallen worlds, watching our planet like it's the most important reality show in existence. They're observing how God handles rebellion, how he offers salvation, how he maintains justice while extending mercy. And phenomena like the Asteroid 3I Atlas, they're part of this cosmic drama. They remind those watching worlds, and us, that we live in a battlefield, not a playground. The end times that Ellen White spoke about aren't just about wrapping up Earth's history. They're about resolving the great controversy once and for all. Every prophetic message, every sign of the end, every celestial event is moving us closer to the moment when harmony will be completely restored. Think about it this way. Lucifer's rebellion broke something fundamental in the universe. It introduced chaos where there was order, death where there was life, fear where there was peace. But God didn't just abandon his creation to spiral into entropy. He implemented a plan so intricate that it uses even asteroids and meteors as teaching tools. When Ellen White spoke about biblical prophecies and final events, she was describing God's master plan to restore what was lost. The Asteroid 3I Atlas isn't just a random rock in space. It's a reminder that we live in a contested universe where the battle between good and evil hasn't ended yet. But it will. And when it does, when the last generation witnesses the fulfillment of every prophetic message, when repentance and salvation have done their work, cosmic harmony will return. The universe will once again function as God originally designed it, without threat, without danger, without the shadow of rebellion hanging over it. Until then, every asteroid that passes reminds us the war isn't over, but God's already won. Let's get brutally honest for a second. You're incredibly fragile. Yeah, you, me, all of us. We walk around pretending we've got everything under control, making 5-year plans, building retirement accounts, investing in our futures, and then news breaks about the Asteroid 3I Atlas. And suddenly, we're reminded just how temporary this whole thing really is. One celestial body moving at the wrong angle, at the wrong time, and everything we've built, everything we've planned, everything we think matters, gone. Just like that. Ellen White understood this reality deeply, which is why her writings constantly echo the truth found in Isaiah 46:8. All flesh is grass, and all its loveliness is like the flower of the field. But the word of the Lord endures forever. That's not pessimism, that's perspective. And it's a perspective we desperately need in times like these. Here's what's wild. We're living in the most technologically advanced era in human history. We've got AI, quantum computers, medical breakthroughs that would have seemed like magic a century ago. We've mapped the human genome, landed rovers on Mars, created vaccines in record time. We're pretty impressed with ourselves, honestly. But then an asteroid shows up in the news, something we can't control, can't negotiate with, can't cancel on Twitter. And all that confidence evaporates. Suddenly, we're confronted with the same existential vulnerability that our ancestors felt during the meteor shower of 1833 that Ellen White wrote about. The technology changes, but human fragility doesn't. We're still flesh and blood navigating a universe that could end us in an instant. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the reminder God wants us to have. Because when we recognize our fragility, we're more likely to seek something eternal, something that doesn't depend on whether an asteroid hits or misses. Ellen White prophecies weren't given to scare people into submission. They were given to wake people up to reality. The reality that life is brief. The reality that we're dependent on God for literally everything, including the fact that asteroids like 3I Atlas don't wipe us out. Think about the sheer number of variables that have to align perfectly for life on Earth to continue. The right distance from the sun, the right atmospheric composition, the right magnetic field protecting us from solar radiation. Jupiter's gravitational pull deflecting most asteroids before they reach us. It's like living in the middle of a cosmic shooting gallery where somehow, miraculously, we keep not getting hit. That's not luck. That's divine protection. And Ellen White's spiritual message was always pointing us toward recognizing that protection and responding with gratitude, humility, and urgency about eternal things. You know what really gets me? How quickly we forget. The Asteroid 3I Atlas makes headlines for a week, maybe two. Everyone's talking about it, making memes, half joking about the end times. Then it passes. Life goes back to normal. We return to our routines, our distractions, our illusions of permanence. And that's exactly what Ellen White warned against in her writings about the last generation. She said that one of the greatest dangers wouldn't be outright rejection of God. It would be spiritual complacency. People getting so comfortable, so distracted, so caught up in temporary things that they miss the signs of the end happening right in front of them. Asteroids in the Bible weren't just apocalyptic imagery. They were literal warnings about celestial events that would test humanity's faith and attention. Are we watching? Are we ready? Or are we so mesmerized by Netflix and social media that we'll miss the cosmic alarm clock going off? Here's the bottom line, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Every single day you wake up is a gift you didn't earn and can't guarantee you'll receive tomorrow. The Asteroid 3I Atlas isn't special because it's uniquely dangerous. It's special because it's forcing millions of people to confront a truth they usually avoid. We're mortal, vulnerable, and completely dependent on forces beyond our control. Ellen White's prophetic messages about final events weren't meant to create paranoia. They were meant to create proper priorities. When you truly grasp that your life is as temporary as grass, as fleeting as a flower that blooms and withers in a day, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter eternally. You stop putting off repentance and salvation. You stop living like you've got unlimited time to get your spiritual house in order. Because you don't. None of us do. And the universe and God are constantly sending us reminders of this fact through aging, through loss, through illness, and yes, through asteroids that streak across the sky, reminding us that we're not as permanent as we'd like to believe. The question isn't whether we're fragile, we are. The question is, what are we doing with the brief time we have? There's something about looking up at the night sky that makes even the most skeptical person pause and wonder. Maybe it's the sheer scale of it all, or maybe it's something deeper, something wired into our souls that recognizes we're seeing something sacred. Ellen White tapped into this when she wrote about signs in the heavens being divine calls to repentance and vigilance. She wasn't talking about superstition or astrology. She was talking about God using his own creation as a megaphone to wake up a sleeping world. The Asteroid 3I Atlas that's got everyone talking right now, it's just the latest chapter in this ancient story of God speaking through celestial phenomena. And here's the question that should make you uncomfortable. What is God trying to awaken in you through these cosmic signs? Let me paint you a picture. Back in 1833, people witnessed one of the most spectacular meteor showers in recorded history. Stars literally falling from the sky just like Jesus described in Matthew 24. Ellen White, Prophecies, identified this as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, a sign that the end times had begun. But here's what's fascinating. Most people who saw it were terrified for about a week, then went back to business as usual. Sound familiar? Every time there's a major celestial event, a solar eclipse, a supermoon, an asteroid flyby, there's this brief window where people suddenly get interested in spiritual things. Churches see a spike in attendance. Google searches for end of the world and biblical prophecies skyrocket. And then, nothing. The moment passes, the asteroid moves on, and everyone returns to their regularly scheduled programming. Ellen White warned about this exact pattern. She said the signs would come, they'd be undeniable, but most people would miss their significance because they're too distracted, too comfortable, or too cynical to pay attention. So what does a genuine spiritual awakening actually look like? It's not just getting goosebumps when you read about prophetic messages or feeling vaguely unsettled when asteroid news breaks. Real awakening is when celestial phenomena stop being entertainment and start being personal. It's when you look at the asteroid 3I Atlas, and instead of just thinking, that's cool or that's scary, you start thinking, what is God saying to me right now? What needs to change in my life? Am I ready for the final events Ellen White wrote about? This is where the rubber meets the road. Because Ellen White's spiritual message wasn't just about informing people, it was about transforming them. She wanted people to move from passive observation to active preparation, from curiosity to commitment, from isn't that interesting to I need to get my life right with God immediately. Here's a practical example of what I'm talking about. When you hear about the asteroid 3I Atlas, your first response might be to check the facts. How big is it? How close will it get? What are the odds of impact? That's natural. But Ellen White would challenge you to ask different questions. Why am I hearing about this now? What is God trying to wake up in my heart? Am I living like someone who believes the signs of the end are real? Have I been treating the universe and God like they're separate, or do I recognize that creation is constantly pointing me toward the Creator? These aren't comfortable questions. They're designed to disturb your peace, to shake you out of spiritual sleepwalking. Because that's what awakening is. It's uncomfortable. It's disruptive. It challenges everything you thought you had figured out. Ellen White wrote extensively about how the last generation would need to be more spiritually alert than any generation before them. Why? Because the signs would multiply, the pace would quicken, and the distractions would be more sophisticated than ever. We're living in that generation right now. Unraveling Prophecies isn't just an intellectual exercise anymore. It's a survival skill. When celestial phenomena appear, they're not random. They're appointments. They're moments when heaven is trying to get your attention before it's too late. The asteroid 3I Atlas isn't just passing by Earth. It's passing through your life at this specific moment in history. And the question Ellen White would ask you is simple but piercing. Will you let this moment wake you up, or will you hit the spiritual snooze button one more time? Because here's the thing about alarm clocks. Eventually they stop going off. Eventually, the opportunity to wake up expires. And then you're not waking up to a new day. You're waking up to judgment. The signs in the heavens are getting louder, more frequent, more undeniable. God is practically shouting through asteroids, eclipses, and cosmic events. Pay attention. Time is running out. The only question left is whether you're finally ready to open your eyes. Panic. That's the word that best describes how modern society reacts whenever news about asteroids or comets hits the internet. The asteroid 3I Atlas gets mentioned on social media, and within hours you've got doomsday preppers stocking bunkers, conspiracy theorists claiming government cover-ups, and millions of people spiraling into anxiety about the end times. It's like clockwork. But here's what's fascinating. This fear reveals something deeper about humanity. We know instinctively that our time here is limited. We sense that judgment is coming. We feel the weight of biblical prophecies, even if we've never read the Bible. Ellen White understood this phenomenon perfectly. She wrote about how people in the last days would be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud. Yet underneath all that bravado would be a deep, unshakable fear of what's coming. And you can see it play out every single time a celestial event makes headlines. Now contrast this with what Ellen White Prophecies actually taught about the end of the world. For those who aren't ready, who haven't experienced repentance and salvation, the return of Christ is absolutely terrifying. It's the moment when all pretense drops, all excuses evaporate, and you stand face to face with eternity unprepared. But for the faithful, Ellen White said it's not terror, it's liberation. Think about that for a second. The same event that causes one person to tremble in fear makes another person lift their head in hope. The difference isn't the event itself, it's the heart of the person experiencing it. When you've been walking with God, when you've been watching for the signs in the heavens, When you've been living with urgency and purpose, an asteroid doesn't scare you. It excites you because you know what it represents. God's promises are being fulfilled and deliverance is closer than ever. Let me give you a real-world example of this contrast. During the meteor shower of 1833, some people literally thought the world was ending right then and there. They were terrified, weeping, convinced they were about to face judgment unprepared. Others, including those who'd been studying Ellen White's spiritual message and biblical prophecies, watched those same falling stars with awe and anticipation. Same event, completely opposite responses. Why? Because fear of the end times is really just fear of being unprepared. It's not the asteroid 3I Atlas that scares people. It's the realization that they've been living for temporary things, ignoring eternal realities, and now time might be up. That's a terrifying thought if you haven't dealt with it. But if you have, if you've already surrendered your life to God, if you've been living with eternity in mind, if you've been taking the prophetic messages seriously, then news about asteroids doesn't send you into panic. It sends you into prayer. Ellen White wrote about the final events with this incredible balance of realism and hope. She didn't sugarcoat what's coming. The universe and God will eventually deal with sin in a final, decisive way. There will be destruction. There will be purification. There will be an end to this current age. But she always pointed beyond the destruction to the restoration, beyond the fear to the hope, beyond the end to the new beginning. That's what people miss when they only focus on the doom and gloom of end times prophecy. Yeah, judgment is real. Yeah, things are going to get intense. But for those who've chosen God's side, who've accepted the salvation offered through Christ, who've been living like the last generation Ellen White described, the end of this world isn't the end of everything. It's the beginning of everything we were created for. So here's the question that should shake you to your core. When you hear about the asteroid 3I Atlas, when you see signs of the end unfolding, when you read about prophetic messages being fulfilled in real time, which person are you? Are you the one gripped by paralyzing fear, scrambling to figure out how to save yourself, panicking because you've wasted so much time? Or are you the one filled with confident hope, knowing that every sign brings you closer to liberation, every celestial phenomenon is another promise kept? Ellen White's challenge to us was clear. Don't wait until the last minute. Don't gamble with eternity. Don't live in denial until an asteroid forces you to confront reality. Get right with God now while there's still time, so that when the final signs appear, your response isn't terror, it's triumph. Because the end of the world doesn't have to be the end of you. For the faithful, it's graduation day. It's moving day. It's the moment when faith becomes sight and hope becomes reality. And that's not something to fear. That's something worth living for. Fire. That's how Ellen White described the ultimate purification of Earth. Not a gentle cleansing, not a soft reset. Literal, consuming fire that will destroy everything contaminated by sin and recreate it from scratch. Now, most people hear that and immediately get uncomfortable. We like our planet. We've got memories here, possessions, places we love. The idea of it all being destroyed feels harsh, excessive even. But here's what Ellen White understood that most people miss. You can't patch corruption. You can't renovate something that's fundamentally broken. Sometimes the only solution is to tear it down completely and rebuild from the foundation up. And that's exactly what God plans to do. The asteroid 3I Atlas and other celestial bodies aren't just cosmic coincidences. They're reminders that God has instruments of power at his disposal, instruments capable of bringing about the prophetic messages he's already announced. Think about this. Every major religion and ancient culture has flood stories, disaster narratives, tales of divine judgment through natural phenomena. Why? Because it's happened before. Ellen White prophecies connect the dots between past judgment, like the flood, and future judgment, like the fire that's coming. Noah's generation laughed at warnings about water destroying the world, seemed impossible, ridiculous even. Our generation laughs at warnings about fire and celestial events being instruments of God's power. History's repeating itself, and most people are too distracted to notice. The biblical prophecies are crystal clear. This current earth, contaminated by millennia of sin and rebellion, cannot continue indefinitely. There will be an end, and according to Ellen White's understanding of Scripture, that end involves destruction on a scale we can barely comprehend. But, and this is crucial, destruction is never God's final word. Ellen White wrote extensively about the new heavens and new earth that come after the purification. See, God's not some cosmic arsonist who just wants to watch things burn. He's a master craftsman who's willing to demolish the broken structure so he can build something infinitely better. When you read Revelation 21:1, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, you're reading about the most ambitious renovation project in history. Everything that sin corrupted will be gone. Cancer, gone. Natural disasters, gone. Death, pain, crying, mourning, gone, 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 gone. And in their place, a world that functions the way God originally designed it. A planet where asteroids don't threaten, but inspire. Where the universe and God exist in perfect harmony again. Let me give you a practical analogy. Imagine you bought an old house. Beautiful bones, great potential, but decades of neglect have left it structurally unsound. Mold in the walls, foundation cracked, electrical system dangerous. You could spend years trying to patch problems, covering symptoms without addressing root causes. Or you could do what needs to be done. Controlled demolition, clear the lot, rebuild properly. That's what Ellen White described happening to Earth. The asteroid 3I Atlas and similar celestial phenomena serve as divine construction notices. Warning, major renovation ahead. Make sure you're on the right side of the project. God's not being cruel by planning Earth's destruction through fire. He's being merciful by warning us repeatedly, giving us time to evacuate spiritually before the demolition begins. What makes Ellen White's perspective so powerful is how she connected physical reality with spiritual truth. She didn't see asteroids and comets as random space junk. She saw them as tools in God's arsenal, instruments that demonstrate His power over creation. When people worry about the asteroid 3I Atlas potentially hitting Earth, they're worried about destruction. But Ellen White would ask them to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Yes, destruction is coming. Yes, this current world will end. But it's ending so something infinitely better can begin. The signs of the end aren't meant to create hopeless dread. They're meant to create urgent preparation. Because on the other side of purifying fire isn't nothingness. It's new creation. It's restoration beyond anything we can imagine. It's a universe where sin's damage has been completely erased and God's original design has been fully restored. And that's not something to fear. That's something worth waiting for, preparing for, and helping others get ready for. The destruction is temporary. The renewal is eternal. And according to the prophetic messages Ellen White emphasized, that transformation is closer now than it's ever been. Here's something that'll stretch your mind. Earth isn't the only inhabited planet in the universe. Yeah, you read that right. Ellen White had visions of other worlds, worlds that never fell into sin, worlds where beings live in perfect harmony with God, worlds that are watching our planet like the most important drama in cosmic history. Now, before you write this off as science fiction, understand that Ellen White's spiritual message wasn't based on speculation or imagination. These were divine revelations, glimpses into realities that God allowed her to see. And one of the most fascinating aspects of these visions was how she described these unfallen worlds, observing Earth, learning from our struggle with sin, and waiting to see how the great controversy resolves. The asteroid 3I Atlas, passing through space, isn't just a phenomenon for humans to notice. It's part of a much larger cosmic context that includes audiences we can't even see. Think about the implications here. If there are other worlds, perfect worlds where the universe and God still operate in original harmony, then our planet is the anomaly. We're the broken one. We're the cautionary tale. Ellen White Prophecies painted this picture of Earth being like a cosmic courtroom where God is on trial, accused by Satan of being unfair, too strict, unloving. And these other worlds, they're watching to see how God handles rebellion. Will he destroy immediately? Will he show mercy? Can love and justice coexist? Every decision God makes regarding Earth, every act of patience, every prophetic message fulfilled, it's all being observed by beings who've never known sin but need to understand why God's way is the only way that works. When the asteroid 3I Atlas streaks through the heavens, who's to say it's not serving as a reminder, not just to us, but to those watching worlds as well? Now let's connect this to the theme of celestial bodies and biblical prophecies. Ellen White wrote that these unfallen beings have witnessed Earth's history from the beginning. They saw the fall, they watched the flood, they observed the meteor shower of 1833. They're tracking every sign of the end, every fulfillment of prophetic messages. And here's what's wild. According to Ellen White, these beings are deeply invested in humanity's story because it affects them too. Once the great controversy is settled on Earth, once God's character has been fully vindicated and sin has been dealt with completely, then, and only then, will the entire universe be secure from rebellion ever happening again. Earth isn't just fighting for its own salvation. In a sense, we're ground zero for a cosmic issue that impacts all of creation. Let me give you a perspective shift. When you look up at the stars, you usually think of emptiness, vast distances, cold void. But Ellen White's visions suggest something radically different. A universe teeming with life, filled with worlds we can't see or detect yet, populated by beings who are as real as you are, but who've never experienced what we call normal suffering, death, sin, separation from God. They live in what we can only dream of, perfect communion with the Creator, existence without fear or pain or loss. And they're fascinated by us, not because we're impressive, we're a mess, but because through us, they're learning lessons about God's character that perfect existence could never teach them. The asteroid 3I Atlas isn't just a rock in space. It's a moving piece in a cosmic drama that involves more players than we realize. Ellen White's prophetic messages about other worlds should completely transform how we view our responsibility. We're not just living for ourselves. We're not even just living for other humans. We're participants in a universal struggle that's being watched by countless beings who need to see that God's way works, that His love is real, that His justice is perfect. When the last generation stands firm during the final events, when the signs in the heavens reach their climax, when the end times fulfill every biblical prophecy, those watching worlds will finally have their answer. They'll see that God was right all along, that His patience was purposeful, that His plan was perfect. And then, Ellen White wrote, they'll join us in the new creation, all of us finally united in a universe where sin is not just defeated, but impossible. The asteroid 3I Atlas is just a tiny part of that enormous tapestry, but it's a part nonetheless, a reminder that we're connected to something far bigger than our little planet, that the universe and God are intertwined in ways we're only beginning to understand, and that our choices here echo across galaxies we've never seen. Let's be blunt. Spiritual complacency is killing more people than any asteroid ever could. You've got Christians who believe in Ellen White prophecies, who know the signs of the end, who can quote biblical prophecies chapter and verse, and yet they're living like they've got all the time in the world. It's the most dangerous kind of denial. See, when the asteroid 3I Atlas makes headlines, everyone wakes up for about 48 hours. Churches get a brief surge in attendance. Prayer groups form. People suddenly remember they're mortal. Then the news cycle moves on. The asteroid passes, and everyone hits the spiritual snooze button again. Ellen White warned about exactly this pattern. She said the greatest danger facing the last generation wouldn't be outright persecution or obvious temptation. It would be distraction. It would be living in a state of perpetual, "I'll deal with that tomorrow," while tomorrow keeps not coming. Here's what makes spiritual vigilance so hard in modern times. We're wired for immediate threats, not gradual ones. If someone points a gun at you, your body knows exactly what to do. Adrenaline kicks in, focus sharpens, survival instincts activate. But spiritual danger? That sneaks up slowly. It's the Netflix series that becomes more important than Bible study. It's the career ambition that crowds out time for prayer. It's the relationship that pulls you away from church. It's the comfort that makes you forget you're supposed to be a pilgrim, not a permanent resident. Ellen White's spiritual message emphasized that just like the universe is in constant motion, asteroids traveling, planets orbiting, galaxies expanding, your spiritual life cannot be static. The moment you stop moving forward with God, you start drifting backward. There's no neutral in spiritual warfare. Let me give you a practical example of what vigilance actually looks like. It's not paranoia or living in constant fear. It's awareness. It's keeping your spiritual radar active. When you hear about the asteroid 3I Atlas, a vigilant Christian doesn't just think, that's interesting. They think, what is God saying through this? When you read about prophetic messages being fulfilled, you don't just collect information, you examine your life against that information. Are you ready? Have you dealt with that sin you keep justifying? Have you mended that broken relationship? Have you shared the truth with people who need to hear it? Vigilance means taking the signs in the heavens seriously enough to let them impact your daily decisions. It means living with urgency without living in panic. It means preparing like the end could be tomorrow while working like you've got years, because honestly, you don't know which is true. Ellen White wrote extensively about how the final events would unfold so quickly that only those who'd been watching would be ready. She compared it to labor pains. They start slowly, spread out, manageable, but they accelerate, they intensify, and suddenly you're in the thick of it with no time left to prepare. The asteroid 3I Atlas is just one contraction in a series that's getting closer together, more intense, harder to ignore. Biblical prophecies are being fulfilled at an accelerating pace. Technology that didn't exist when Ellen White was alive is now enabling the exact scenarios she described. Global connectivity, digital currencies, surveillance systems, the ability to enforce worldwide mandates. All the infrastructure for end times events is in place. And most people are too busy scrolling through social media to notice. Here's the question that should haunt every person who claims to believe in the end times. What are you doing today that demonstrates you actually believe what you say you believe? Because here's the truth. Spiritual vigilance isn't about having correct theology. It's about living like that theology is true. It's about letting the reality of coming judgment and salvation shape how you spend your time, your money, your energy. Ellen White would ask, when the asteroid 3I Atlas made news, did it change anything about your life? Did you pray more? Did you witness to someone? Did you deal with that sin you've been carrying? Or did you just add it to your collection of interesting end times facts and move on? The universe and God are in motion. Prophecy is unfolding. Signs are multiplying. The only question is, are you moving with the times, or are you spiritually asleep while everything accelerates around you? Because vigilance isn't about being perfect, it's about being awake, aware, and active. And time's running out to wake up after everything we've talked about. Asteroids, destruction, judgment, cosmic battles. Let's end where Ellen White always ended, with hope. Not the weak, wishful thinking kind of hope. Real hope, solid hope. Hope based on promises from a God who's never broken one. Because here's the thing, people forget when they get caught up in fear about the end times. The end of this world isn't the end of everything. It's the beginning of everything we were created for. Ellen White Prophecies painted such a vivid picture of the new creation that reading her descriptions makes you homesick for a place you've never been. New heavens, new earth, a universe completely purged of sin's contamination and restored to original perfection. That's not fantasy, that's biblical prophecy. That's what's coming. And every sign we see, including the asteroid 3I Atlas, is just another mile marker on the road home. Think about what Revelation 21:1 actually says. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. John didn't say slightly improved heaven and earth. He said new, brand new. Start from scratch new. Ellen White expanded on this, describing landscapes more beautiful than anything we've seen, colors we don't have names for, experiences that'll make our best moments here seem like shadows. No more death, obviously, but also no more pain, physical or emotional. No more crying, no more mourning, no more separation, no more fear that an asteroid might hit, no more wondering if God really cares, no more battling with sin. Just pure, unfiltered, eternal joy in the presence of the one who made you and loves you more than you can comprehend. That's the spiritual message that should be ringing in your ears every time you hear about potential catastrophes. Now let's get practical about what this hope should do to your life right now. Ellen White wrote that hope in the new creation isn't meant to be an escape from present responsibility. It's meant to be fuel for present faithfulness. When you really believe that God's going to make all things new, that every tear you've cried will be wiped away, that every loss you've suffered will be restored, that every injustice will be corrected, that belief changes how you live today. You stop clutching so tightly to temporary things. You stop being devastated when plans fall apart. You stop measuring success by worldly standards because you know, really know, that this isn't your final home. You're just passing through. And the universe and God are preparing something so magnificent for those who love Him that our minds literally can't process it yet. Here's something Ellen White emphasized that gets overlooked. The new creation isn't just about what we get, it's about who we become. The last generation that goes through the final events, that remains faithful despite everything Satan throws at them, that chooses God even when it costs everything. Those people will have characters refined by fire. They'll have faith tested and proven genuine. They'll have love purified of all selfishness. And when the new earth arrives, they won't just observe its beauty, they'll fit into it perfectly. Because they'll have been transformed into the kind of people who can live in a perfect world without corrupting it again. The signs of the end, the trials, the asteroids and catastrophes and fulfillment of biblical prophecies, they're not just warnings. They're also invitations to character development. They're opportunities to let God make you into someone who's ready for eternity. So here's where we land. The asteroid 3I Atlas will pass. Other asteroids will come. More signs in the heavens will appear. More prophetic messages will be fulfilled. Things will get more intense, more challenging, more urgent. Ellen White was clear about that, but she was equally clear about this. For those who stay faithful, who keep watching, who maintain hope even when everything looks hopeless, for those people, the story ends better than any fairy tale. It ends with restoration beyond imagination. It ends with reunion beyond description. It ends with joy beyond measure. The end times aren't just about surviving catastrophe. They're about emerging on the other side into a reality where catastrophe is impossible, where asteroids are objects of wonder, not fear, where the universe operates in perfect harmony with its creator again, and where you, yes, you, get to spend eternity exploring the wonders of God's creation without any of the limitations or dangers you've known here. That's not wishful thinking. That's prophetic certainty. That's the hope Ellen White lived for, wrote about, and passed on to us. And it's the hope that should define every choice you make from this moment forward. So here we are. You've just walked through 10 profound truths that connect the asteroid 3I Atlas to something far bigger than astronomy, to prophecy, to spiritual warfare, to your eternal destiny. Now comes the real question. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Because here's the thing, information without application is just entertainment. You can watch this video, think, wow, that was interesting, close the tab, and go back to scrolling through your feed. Or you can let what you've learned actually change something. So let me ask you directly, when was the last time you looked at the sky and saw more than just clouds and stars? When was the last time a news story about an asteroid made you examine your spiritual condition instead of just your survival plan? When was the last time you lived like someone who actually believes the end times are real? Not someday, not eventually, but potentially soon. Ellen White's prophetic messages weren't given so we could collect interesting facts. They were given to prepare a generation that would need to stand firm when everything around them is shaking. That generation is us, right now, this moment. Here's what I want you to do after this video ends. Don't just move on. Take 5 minutes, just 5, and ask yourself these questions. Am I spiritually ready if the signs accelerate faster than I expected? Is there someone in my life who needs to hear these truths before it's too late? What's one thing I've been putting off spiritually that I need to deal with today? And then, this is crucial, actually do something about those answers. Make the call, send the message, deal with the sin, start the conversation, read the book, change the habit. Whatever God's been nudging you about while watching this, stop ignoring it. Because here's what Ellen White understood that most people miss. The signs in the heavens aren't given to scare you into paralysis. They're given to wake you into action. Every asteroid, every prophecy fulfilled, every cosmic event is heaven saying, time matters, eternity matters, get ready. So let me leave you with this. The asteroid 3I Atlas will pass, but the spiritual reality it represents, that's not going anywhere. The great controversy is still playing out. The final events are still approaching, and you still have time, right now, today, to make sure you're on the right side of this cosmic battle. Don't waste it. If this video challenged you, convicted you, or opened your eyes to something you'd been missing, do 2 things. First, hit that like button so this message reaches more people who need to hear it. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain on the spiritual realities behind world events. This is just the beginning. And drop a comment below. I want to know what hit you hardest in this video. What's the one thing you're going to change starting today? Let's build a community of people who aren't just watching prophecy unfold. We're preparing for it. The sky is speaking. The question is, are you finally ready to listen?